Good morning, y'all. Happy Friday to you. I'm Ricky, and I'm coming to you with another off the cuff. So it's Friday, which I love. It's the end of the week, and I've accomplished another week, and it's a good feeling. I'll tell you, this week has been, uh, it's been pretty taxing, you know, with regard to, well, I don't know if you've followed what happened to me last Saturday. I was hit by a car again, and it was my second time of being hit. So, what that entails is, well, the title of this video, off the cuff. I usually don't like subtitle my off the cuff videos, but this week has been a very taxing week emotionally and mentally. And so I'm going to jump on here real quick, try to compile it all into a few minutes as much as I can, and talk about how I overcome or get through, work through PTSD. Because I'm sure that we can all relate to some extent uh, to varying degrees of trauma in our lives. And it'd be really cool if we figured out how to work through it. Like, what are the tools that you do to get through that stuff? And, I can't speak for every type of PTSD, but what I can say is that I, having brittle bones, experienced various traumas, not just with brittle bones, but, I grew up with my mom dating abusive guys and married one abusive guy. And so I've experienced the trauma of abuse as well. And so, I think that this can apply to various types of PTSD. Um, and so let me start out by saying the first thing I do is, hey, I tell people I'm struggling, like, hey, please pray for me. Um, those closest to me, I will do that, and I will just let them know, hey, I'm kind of going through this right now. Uh, so please keep me in prayer. That's the first thing I do. And then the second thing, the most important thing, is that I try to remember what God says about me. And I'll tell you why I say that. It's because, His word is the only thing that I can stand on. And so, or sit on, um, that I can stand on. It's firm, it's solid. Because what happens with PTSD, and if you don't know what that is, post traumatic stress disorder, and I'm not diagnosed with it or anything like that. I just know that I have thoughts that creates this trauma trigger response. And so what I do is I need to be sure to remember and meditate to think about the things that God says about me and who I am, my value. Because what happens, now back to my point, is your thoughts, and this is where I apply something called cognitive behavioral therapy, but with a biblical aspect to it. Because CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, not all of it suggests that we should or that we are relying on the Lord. This is from a biblical perspective. If you're a Christian and you hold on to Christ for salvation, you can hold on to this truth, which is long lasting forever. And so that's where my faith really holds me strong. And so anyway, all right. So my thoughts will sink in. All right. So when I was hit this past weekend, what happens is I remember and I replay it over and over in my mind. And then what goes on is I imagine what could have happened. And it didn't, but what could have happened. And our minds typically go to the worst case scenario, which is unfortunate, but that's what happens. And so I'm thinking, like, I, the car ran me over, crushed me, didn't kill me, and I have all these broken bones. And if you've ever broken bones, it's not a good feeling. So, what also plays into my mind is the sound of the broken bones. I don't know exactly how to explain it other than you ever watch yourself on video and you hear the way you sound, it sounds different. But to you, in your head, you you don't sound like that, right? Well, I can hear my broken bones. Like I can hear them break internally. So weird. I don't know how to explain it other than the voice example. And so I hear the broken bones and I'm like, that just like a cringe-worthy sound. And so this is happening. This is what happens with me and PTSD, where I'm thinking about what could have happened and it didn't. And I'm even hearing the sounds of it. Sometimes, every once in a while, don't really experience it this that much today, but I used to be able to smell the broken bone as well. That was when I would break bones much more frequently, and so it had an odor. But with that, I then think about, okay, that didn't happen, so your thoughts lead to your emotions, and what emotion does that spark? Fear, right? And so I can't let fear take over me because God's word says to rely on Him and to not be anxious for anything. Anxiety is an element of fear. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to let these emotions stop me and cripple me, if you will. So that fear could stop me from leaving my house. And in a perfect world, there are relatives, friends that are like, well, you got to stay safe. Honestly, the world is not safe. That's just the way it is. And you can't live in fear. So when I got hit by the car, I told my mom this week, I was like, all right, mom, I'm experiencing a little bit of PTSD. What I need to do is go back to the crosswalk and cross over the street a couple times just to get past it because the reality is I'm not going to get hit every time. Like, that's just not it. There are good drivers out there who are paying attention. And so then there's the actions, not allowing that fear to control my actions. And so, with that said, I am constantly battling that fear and it not allowing me to be held down by it. And then there's also the other aspects of the external voices. People mean well, really, but then also you create those voices in your head too, or I do. Excuse me. Where it's like, okay, well, I know the patterns of certain people, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm assuming they're saying this. And then it's like, okay, well, if you're having that assumption, then, don't spend time feeding that. What does God say about it? What do the people who have reached out to you say about it and care about? And so I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I'm constantly battling that this week. And I wanted to come on here and share that with you in case you're someone who wrestles with PTSD or getting past some kind of trauma, you know, the only way to really do this is to challenge your thoughts by God's word. And that's truly the only solid ground you have, because your thoughts, they can wander and stray and lead you in different ways. So I would encourage you, if you are someone who is experiencing this, reach out to someone, ask them for prayer. Because when you have good, godly friends, they will remind you of what God says about you. And then also, they'll pray for you. Some may even pray with you, which is really cool. So if you have been encouraged by this, or maybe even if you have experienced PTSD, please reach out to me, send me a message, no matter where you're watching this from, and I will pray with you. And I am hoping that you have a good day, a good weekend, and may God bless you.